Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Sarah. I am a PhD candidate in English, rhetoric, and opposition, and in just a few months I will be finishing my dissertation, defending it, and starting a job as a tenure-track assistant professor. So this video feels a little long overdue. Just setting my tea down. I just want to have a cozy little chat, a little Q&A. So I asked you all to leave any questions that you might have for me on my Instagram story a couple of weeks ago. I can link my Instagram here, and I want to address some of those questions. So we're going to be chatting, of course, about grad school. A lot of the questions are about grad school, about the job market, and then about some other random stuff. You guys asked really good questions, so I'll be reading them off my phone, and let's hop into it. So the first two questions are really related, and it was one, what were you looking for in grad programs when you were applying? And two, how did you choose a PhD program? So I actually have a video that talks all about this in depth. But when I was applying to grad school, I was currently a senior in undergrad. I went straight through to grad school, and I applied to a mixture of programs. I applied to some that were masters only, and I applied to some that were a combined masters and PhD program. In my experience, those are becoming a little less common, and most places want you to get your masters first before joining a PhD program. But all the programs that I got into were joint programs, joint MA and PhD programs. So I was like, okay, I'm in it for the long haul. And here we are. I also only applied to funded programs. I knew that a career that an English degree will get you isn't going to be a high-paying career. It's not like I'm going to be a medical doctor and make this money back. So all the programs I was applying to needed to have tuition remission and give you some type of stipend, whether that was for writing center work, for teaching, for any type of graduate administrative work. In terms of choosing programs, I was really torn between two different programs when it came down to the end of it. I got into University of Florida, where I went for undergrad for grad school, but I knew that I wanted to study with someone new. That was the advice given to me from my undergraduate mentor himself. He was like, you need to spread your wings and meet new people and study under new people. And ultimately, I decided to come to IU for a couple of different reasons. I came here for prospective student weekend, and it really just felt like a place where I wanted to be. I also felt like there were faculty members who I could work really well with. There was a really large number of faculty. The course offering seemed really cool and really diverse. And also in terms of location, I just felt a little bit more at home in the Midwest, because a lot of my extended family is in the Midwest. I grew up going to the Midwest every summer. And the other school that I was thinking about going to would be sort of like Northeast, more city life, and that was a lot scarier to me and a lot less familiar. The next question is, what was the transition like from undergrad to grad school / your PhD? So it was really hard. I say time and time again, the hardest part of grad school is the first year, especially if you're going straight through, and especially I think joining like a PhD program or a combined MA PhD program. There were a lot of people in my courses who already had their masters, so who sort of like knew how grad school worked already, and the imposter syndrome was just on another level. It was just like out of this world. I felt like I didn't deserve to be there. There were people in my classes who came from like really prestigious places, who came from Ivy Leagues, and I was like, how did I get in here? Why am I here? What am I doing? The workload felt really hard to keep up with. The readings felt like they were 5 times as hard and 5 times as many. And right from the get-go, they were expecting you to sort of like have an idea of what your dissertation project was going to be about. I'm so glad that I didn't have to teach my first year. I was on fellowship my first year, so I could just focus on coursework. But if I would have had to teach and get thrown into all that coursework, that might have been like the straw that broke the camel's back, and it might have been too much for me, and I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. So yeah, the transition was rough. Not only was I 1,000 miles from home, it helped that I went like a couple hundred miles away from home. I was like a 5.5 hour drive from home for undergrad, but this time I was a whole flight away from home, living in a whole nother part of the country, and I knew literally no one. I had met Megan at prospective student weekend, and that was pretty much it. So I don't say this to scare you if you're like thinking about starting grad school, but I just want to give you some like honest feedback that it takes time. It takes a lot of time to know that you deserve to be there, to sort of just like figure things out, to learn how to manage that sort of workload, to learn how to do that amount of readings, to know that you don't have to read everything. But yeah, the transition was really hard. Which is sort of similar to the next question. How do you manage a grad school workload and making time for yourself? So this is such a big question, and this is something that I really strive to show on this channel, like an honest, balanced, or at least attempted balanced life between like work and school. So throughout my time in grad school, I've done a couple of different things. I have obviously been a graduate student, so that means coursework, then exams, and writing the dissertation. And basically this entire time I have had a part-time job. Most of the time that's been working at the writing center 10 hours a week, but for a brief stint there I was also a social media coordinator for 10 hours a week, or for a period it was even more, it was like closer to 15 hours a week. And I have also taught. Sometimes it's one section a semester, sometimes it's 2 sections a semester. So there's a lot of moving parts that you have to balance. One thing that is really, really helpful and important for me is having a really solid community. And community can take a lot of different forms. So some advice that I actually got from one of my uncles when I started college was, you don't need to make friends with everyone. You really just need one person. You need one person who is going to be with you through it all. And that was very true for me for my first couple of years in undergrad with my college roommate Chloe. And that has been very true for me in grad school as well with Megan. Megan was there for me from the very beginning, and I know that she will be with me through the very end, like all the way through our careers and stuff like that. And so that would be my advice. Find one person. You don't need to make friends with everyone, but find the one who, when things are bad, you can vent with them. When things are good, you can celebrate with them. Also, community can take a lot of digital forms as well. I know that I FaceTime my family at least once a week. I go through phases. Sometimes I'm FaceTiming my nephews nearly every single day, and it's ridiculous. But I still feel very connected to a lot of people back home, especially my family, because I'm constantly texting them, I'm constantly FaceTiming them, constantly talking to them on the phone, etc. Another form of digital community that I have found is via Accepted Society, specifically their PhDone program. So this portion of the video is actually sponsored by Accepted Society and the PhDone program. This is something that if you watch my channel, you've heard me talk about a little bit before. But this online platform has given me the opportunity to meet so many people who are in the same position as I am. People who are finishing up the dissertation, people who are like actually in the trenches with me, understanding the same struggle that I'm in, and also giving me a dissertation coach, which has been amazing. Someone who I can chat with, who can give me that extra motivation, who can help me set deadlines for myself, set realistic plans. You see me talk about the Notion template, which is amazing, and I use every single time I sit down to write my dissertation. But really what it all comes back to for me is this community that it offers. I love having this space to check in with each other, to set monthly goals. I love having write-ins together in the beginning where we can celebrate each other's little wins and sort of mourn some of the losses that we have, whether that's not making a deadline, getting rejected from a publication, etc., and just working in solidarity. So this form of digital community has been massive for me. And if you're interested in finding community in this space and you want to join Accepted Society or specifically the PhDone program, I always have a link in my description box for you to check out. So I guess to answer this question, how do I balance things? I really lean on people and I really focus on the community aspect of things. But also in terms of time management, I think things are going to get a little bit different here now that I'm like in grind time with finishing the dis. I try not to do work after dinner, and that's been something that has made all the difference. In coursework it was really, really hard just because there was so much that I had to read. But in the dissertation phase of things, when you can sort of set your own schedule a lot more than when like you have classes, I am pretty strict about that. And I don't do work after dinner, and I just take my time to really like cook a nice dinner, watch TV with Megan, read my book, and that way I can wake up feeling refreshed in the morning. And that is like a huge boundary that I would recommend if you're able to really try and separate and create some type of work-life balance for yourself. So another interesting question about the transition to grad school: how was the move logistically from Florida to Indiana when you started grad school? So I mentioned like emotionally and just like in terms of labor, it was really hard for me. It wasn't just college 2.0, it felt like college 10.0, and it was really difficult. But the move logistically, I think I got really lucky because I didn't have a lot of stuff from college. I lived in a dorm for 2 years and I lived in a completely furnished apartment for 2 years. So I didn't have to bring much stuff with me. I bought all of my furniture once I moved to Indiana. I bought a pretty cheap bedroom set and just like some basic living room pieces that I split with Megan. And so everything that I had to move from Florida all the way to Indiana was able to fit in my 2008 Honda Civic. And I actually drove up with my dad and we split the drive into 2 days. He did all the driving. I was a passenger princess, slept in the front seat for a lot of the time. And the move logistically wasn't that hard. I will say I got really lucky that Megan was in driving distance and we knew that we were going to live together. And so she toured a lot of the places in Bloomington and sort of just sent me videos or photos and we were able to just text about it. But honestly, there's so many like virtual options now for like virtual tours and stuff like that in terms of like apartment hunting that I don't think it would have been that much of an issue. But yeah. I forget that I did that move logistically, and then I sort of did it again because I was back home in 2020 at the onset of COVID, and now I'm like, I'm gonna do the move in reverse. I have to go back to Miami to start my job in the fall. So there's a lot of logistics involved, but you sort of just like make it happen. This is another interesting question. How does the idealized version of being a grad student live up to the reality of it for you? I didn't have an idealized version of being a grad student. I think if I would have watched a lot of vlogs, I might have, but I didn't even know vlogs existed until I came to grad school, which is part of the reason why I made this channel. I wish I would have known what I was signing up for. So this question was hard because I don't think I like had an idealized version. I don't think it was like really romanticized in my mind. I don't think I was like, I'm gonna go to coffee shops all the time and I'm gonna write poetry and do all this stuff. So in a sense, it's been a lot better than I expected it to be. And there's a lot of different reasons for this. I was a really stressed out, anxious undergraduate student. I didn't go to therapy. I wasn't on anxiety medication. I didn't know how to like label or sort of like cope with a lot of my anxiety. So now that I'm in grad school, especially now that I'm in the dissertation phase and I'm able to set my own schedule, it really does feel like an ideal life in so many ways. I get to wake up and decide what I want to work on, where I want to go to do work, what time I want to get started. I'm only responsible for myself, and I don't know. I'm really privileged, obviously, in a lot of different ways, but it feels a lot better than I could have imagined. I don't think I would have said that when I was in the coursework or the exam phase. So I'm obviously really biased now that I'm like on the other side of those things, but yeah. Better than I could have imagined. Going along with that, do you feel fairly compensated? That's a juicy question. So my stipend was $10,000 less my first year than it is currently. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. So just like cost of living, inflation, a lot of different programs have given grad students raises over the years. So at this current moment, and with the part-time jobs that I have with the Writing Center, with the money that I make from the views on YouTube and from sponsorships on YouTube, I definitely feel like I'm making enough money to meet my basic needs. I don't worry about if I'm going to be able to pay rent. I don't worry about if I'm going to be able to pay my utility bills. I'm able to go out and get a coffee if I want to get a coffee. I'm able to go shopping every once in a while. But am I able to live like a lavish life? Of course not. I think I would really struggle if I wanted to live alone. Having a roommate definitely helps with the cost of rent. But I also knew coming in to grad school that the pay was not super high. I am not doing this for the money. If you're in it for the money, you probably should not be in academia, and you should definitely not be in English or writing studies, because that's not where the money's at. So I don't know, this question's really loaded. I feel like I make enough money to feel secure, and I'm really grateful for that. I have all of my needs met, and I have all the insurance plans covered: vision, health, dental, etc. But do I think grad students as a whole are paid fairly for the amount of work that they do for the university system at large? No, of course not. I feel like this is just a fact. Grad students, especially in teaching heavy departments like English and like in the humanities, do a lot of the labor, and I would like to see people more fully compensated, but I also know that I feel grateful because every day I also feel like my needs are able to be met. Another question that I get a lot, especially on TikTok, is why is your program so long? Is 7 years normal? Every discipline and every program is so different. So I will say, when I got accepted to IU into the other programs that I got that were joint masters and PhDs, the contract was 6 years. So it's typically 3 years of coursework, 1 year of an exam year where you take your comprehensive exam, write your dissertation prospectus or proposal, and then 2 years for the dissertation. 6 years total. So I obviously have taken 7 years. I took an extra year for the dissertation just because I knew that I was going to be on the job market at the same time, and I really have wanted to make the dissertation something that I'm able to finish well and something that I'm proud of. And it also took me a while to get started. It was a really big topic for me, and it was hard to just like pin down what exactly my argument was. And also there was a year when I was back home, we faced a global pandemic that we're still facing. There were a lot of reasons for that. So 7 years, yeah, I would say that is normal. My contract was 6 years, so that meant like they were required to fund me for 6 years with the option of continuing that funding, which I have received. And I know very few people who in various like joint MA PhD programs in English or in humanities who graduate in 6 years or less. I think that that is definitely not the norm. So 7+ years, is that normal? Yeah. It takes a long time to really learn the field. English and rhetoric and composition is a massive field. It takes time to understand the history of it. It takes time to understand the different contours and subfields within it. It takes time to really understand and develop what you want your project to be. A lot of these projects that we do are rooted in longitudinal studies or case studies that really take time to unfold, take time to plan the class. If it's a sort of IRB project like mine is, to teach the class, to sort of gather data about the class. So it takes a long time. So 7 years, yeah. I do think that that's normal in my experience. Another question about people is, how do you deal with gossip or negativity amongst your cohort? I get questions about cohorts and like making friends within your cohort a lot. And I will say it until the day I die. I am so lucky that I met Megan when I did and that we have become besties, because I would not have survived this without her. But I also feel really lucky that my cohort as a whole has been really supportive. That is something I asked a lot of questions about during Prospective Student Weekend. Like, is it competitive? Are we competing for funding? Are we competing for teaching and stipend opportunities? And I was told constantly, no. Everyone is a community, everyone is supporting each other here, and I definitely felt that. But I know it's not the same like that in every field. It's not the same like that in every university or program. And so I don't know if I have answers to this question of how to deal with it. There's also just like always going to be haters. No matter what, there's going to be haters. And you have to do your best to, I don't want to say like block them out, because I know that it's not that simple. It's really just like focusing your energy on what is supporting you and who is supporting you. And that's something I honestly am really proud of my 22-year-old self for having like the knowledge and the emotional intelligence to ask, like, is this a supportive program? So if you're in the phase where you're deciding between programs, that's something that I think is 100% worthwhile to ask. Like, do things feel competitive? And I would ask that to a lot of different people at different stages in the program, and something that you can also ask to faculty. We also have a Rhetoric Society of America student chapter, which has a lot of professionalization activities for us. So I'm going to be on a panel in a couple weeks where I talk about my experience on the job market and give people advice for stuff like that. And maybe that could be something that you ask about too, is the program offering these different sort of not only like social events, but like professionalization events, just events for like communal growth in ways that you can all learn from each other. And if you are in a toxic program right now where you are dealing with a lot of the gossip and the negativity, I am so sorry. That has to be one of the worst feelings in the world. Grad school is hard enough, and I can't imagine having all of that added on top of it. I feel very lucky every day that that was not my experience. I also think we could think about cohorts a little bit more broadly. So cohorts technically are the people who came in at the same time as you, but I've made friends with a lot of people who came in a few years after me or a few years before me, and that's been really great too. You're not going to get along with everyone. That's not the way the world works. You don't have to be friends with everyone. But thinking a bit more expansively in terms of like making your cohort. Like, I hang out with Joanna quite a bit, and she's like 2 or 3 years newer to the program than I am. I've been hanging out with Jamie a lot lately. She's in her 2nd year of the program. So just finding other people also in other disciplines. I wish that I had more friends who would like force me to stop talking about English and Rec Comp and other disciplines, to be friends with, or people even outside of grad school to form a community with. Okay, now dealing more towards like the present and future moment. How do you deal with the pressure to finish your dissertation? I feel really called out for that right now, because in this current moment, I'm stressed. I'm very stressed that I need to be like constantly writing. So I take it on a day-by-day basis in terms of stress management, but I also try and plan on a lot of different levels. I always plan my week. What type of writing do I want to get done for the week? What type of writing do I want to get done for the month? And I check in with my advisor a lot. We are in constant communication, especially now that I'm getting basically up right to the end. And he always asks me, what do you feel like is a reasonable goal or timeline for you? And he tells me if he thinks that's A, too ambitious for me, or B, not ambitious enough and I need to step it up a little bit. And I also think that this is where the PhDone program comes in handy, of having those people there to motivate you and to inspire you, to sort of reframe things from like pressure to like encouragement and motivation. And Megan and I are also always constantly holding each other accountable to finish our freaking dissertations. So what are some of your after school plans? Do you still want to work in the writing center? So per my last videos, I shared the news that I will be continuing on in the academic trajectory, being a tenure track assistant professor. So those are my plans, specifically at the University of Miami. And another question that goes along with that is, why are you staying in academia? This is really hard. So obviously, being on the job market, I gave it a lot of thought of, do I want to pursue what is often called like alt-ac, alternative academic positions, especially because I have a lot of experience with like technology. I feel like I could easily pivot, as they say, and go into ed tech or something like that. But I just don't feel done yet. I feel like I need to give this a chance. I don't know if I'm going to be like in academia until the day I die. Who knows? Who knows what like the future in the world holds, honestly. But I know that this is something that I feel good at, that I feel thoroughly invigorated by and recharged by every time I step into a classroom and teach, every time I write something that I'm really proud of, every time I read really cool and inspirational articles. And the only way I know how to phrase it is, this is something I feel like I owe it to myself to try. It's a really scary time, especially in the United States right now with the government and like the Department of Education. There was literally an executive order to dismantle it like 2 days ago. So things are really scary, and a lot of people are like, now is the time to get out of academia. I would combat that, and I would say now more than ever is the time to get in. Now more than ever is the time for people who believe in the power of it to fight for it. And I know that it's going to be a fight. I know that it's not going to be easy. I am scared every day about the future of this and the certainty of it, but I also know the power in teaching, and I know the power and the potential in making institutional changes, and this is something that's important to me, and this is something that I want to try. So all of that in a nutshell is why I'm choosing to stay in academia. How do you handle job rejections, and how do you handle rejection in the academic space? I have received so many rejections this year, more than ever, being on the job market. So a number that my advisor gave me is, if you receive interview requests for 30% or more than the jobs that you apply to, you are like top tier, top of the line. So that's less than a third. So I had to really wrap my head around the fact that I was going to be rejected. I am like not used to being rejected. Like I said, I was a very anxious perfectionist undergrad. I got like a 4.0 in undergrad, which was insane. I don't know why I did that or how I did that. But all that being said, it took a lot of like mental preparation and a lot of like therapy calls to brace myself for this rejection. And with jobs specifically, it's all about fit. There's a million things that they're looking for. Some of the things are specifically posted in the job ad. Some they won't post in the job ad. They're just looking for someone who's going to be like a good fit with the department culture, and a good fit in terms of like personality, and like a good fit for the city that they would potentially be living in. So you just always have to remember that it is about them and it is not about you. That is constantly what I came back to, and knowing that even my committee, who I think are some of the smartest people in the world, also got rejected more than they got invited for interviews or campus visits or got job offers. in terms of rejections from other things outside of jobs, I've been rejected for publications. I've been rejected for classes that I wanted to teach and I didn't get. And it stings every time and it sucks. But you have to know that there's so many more opportunities, and you just have to trust that everything will work out the way that it is meant to be. For example, a publication that I proposed to that I was like really excited for, this piece that I was going to write, got rejected, and I was shocked because it felt like a perfect fit for the journal. But I'm sure I'm going to end up finding a journal that's a much better home for it anyway. And I'm grateful that I've had like this extra time to work on the piece. It probably wouldn't have been ready in the way that I wanted it to be if it did get accepted for that initial publication venue. And because I didn't get those opportunities that I applied for example, I applied to be an assistant director for a composition program and I didn't get it, despite feeling like I performed really well in the interview and was like really qualified for the experience. But then I was able to teach all these different versions of digital literacy that I would have never had the opportunity to do if I was doing all of that administrative work. So I know it sounds cheesy and sometimes it feels comforting and sometimes it doesn't, but you just have to trust everything is working out the way that it is meant to be. And a couple more questions just about life stuff. Someone asked what my hobbies are, which I really appreciated. I appreciated the question, like not related to grad school or anything. So YouTube is one of my hobbies. I love making videos. I especially love editing videos. I always want to get better at editing. I hope that I have more time in the future to either take like videography or like filmography or just like editing classes, or to just like watch more videos about like how to edit YouTube videos. And vlogging is just so fun in general. I also just like love to watch reality TV. Megan and I watch a lot of reality TV. I like to read for fun. I love shopping more than I should. I specifically love thrifting. It feels just like really mindful and just like slow living to me. Just like hanging out with friends. I like baking. I like eating good food, eating dessert. So yeah, I also feel like I go through phases with hobbies. For a while I was really into like iPad drawing and iPad art. I was really into like coloring in my coloring book. I really wanted to be into sewing. I have a sewing machine and could never quite learn, but I haven't given up hope on that. So I don't know, I'm just a girl. I'm constantly finding hobbies. And another juicy one about politics. Do you struggle to balance your political belief in your Christian faith? So in my early vlogs, I talked a lot about faith, religion, church, whatever you would want to call it. And I've sort of stepped away from talking about all of that because it was just hard. And so now, even if you ask me like, what do you identify as? I was born and raised a Christian. My parents are actually pastors. And all of those like values and beliefs are like deeply, deeply entrenched in me, literally like how I was raised as a baby. But it's becoming just increasingly hard for me to identify with like the capital C church, the capital C of Christianity as a religion. What I value is being like the figure or the person of Jesus Christ, who history tells us that Jesus was someone who advocated for marginalized populations, someone who loved people regardless of difference and didn't love them in ways that was motivating them to change, but just to sort of come as you are type of love. Someone who just valued being like a good person and kindness and charity and advocacy, as I said. So that is more so how I see like my values aligned. So in those ways, I think that they deeply inform my political beliefs, because my political beliefs are also motivated by all those things. Is the way that I'm voting or the policies that I'm advocating for participating in those actions and motivated by love and by kindness and helping others and always having others' best interests in mind and coming from places of empathy and things like that. I know that that's the opposite of what is going on in a lot of cultures. And we actually saw this with Love is Blind, as it was shot in like the Twin Cities or filmed in the Twin Cities. And I could go on and on about this. Yeah, I won't spend too long talking about that. And then the last question, what do I feel most excited for about in terms of going home back to Miami? I'm so excited to be with my family, so I don't plan on like living in my childhood home. I think that that would be a little bit strange. But I'm excited just to be in driving distance from my parents. I mean, as sad as it is, like parents aren't around forever. I'm excited to have this time with them. So excited to be with my nephews, to be with my brother, my sister-in-law. Two of my sisters live in, or both my sisters live in Orlando, so I'll be only like a couple hour drive from them. I'm excited to be in the land of the sunshine again, and I'm just excited for a new phase of life. There is quite a bit of cognitive dissonance for me, because part of me is like, am I going backwards? Is like going back home, like, I don't know, like not a step forward. I also like didn't love the city of Miami when I was like living there, but I also think it's going to be a totally different experience living in Miami as an adult versus living in Miami as like a 0 to 18-year-old. So mostly family and just starting a new chapter of my life. So if you're not subscribed already, now would be a great time to do that, to keep up with the rest of my grad school journey, which is coming to an end very soon, and to keep up with the future professor vlogs, which I'm so excited to make, and I already have so many ideas for them. And thank you all so much for watching this video. I would love to chat with you in the comments. If you have a question or a follow-up on anything that I said, leave a comment on this video, send me a DM on Instagram, send me an email. I would love to chat with you all about anything and everything, and I'll see you guys in the next one.